So good morning or good afternoon or good evening wherever you are in the world. Talent Finders would like to introduce actor, impressionist, writer and director Jim Meskimen. Welcome, Jim.
Hey, thank you, Karen.
So Jim, firstly, congratulations on all your success and achievements. Can you please share with us a little more about your journey and how you got into the acting industry? And was this something you always knew you wanted to do?
It wasn't something I knew that I wanted to do professionally for quite a long time. I was raised in an acting family. My mother is an actress of some renown. She was her name is Marion Ross, and she starred as Marion Cunningham on Happy Days in the 70s and 80s. And so I saw that side of Hollywood, really grew up around it, and saw what it was like to be a actual working actor before that, when Mom was not famous and was just hustling around doing guest spots and plays and things like that. But I was a cartoonist mainly. That was what I wanted to do when I was a kid. Yeah. And I taught myself how to do that. I drew for years. I was, the kid that always drew in school, and eventually that was my first real job and real career. I worked for Hanna-Barbera Studios for a short time, and then when I was in my 20s, I worked for Rankin Bass Productions on a show called Thundercats, which is still remembered with a lot of nostalgia by people in their 30s, I think, mainly.
Yeah. No, I remember the Thundercats. I was actually quite a big fan of the Thundercats back in the day.
Oh, okay. Well, as it happened, while I was building my acting career, I was designing the secondary characters for that show.
Amazing.
Studying improv at night and doing shows on the weekends and doing cartoons during the day. So it was a busy time. And then, I've always had an artistic kind of, all my interests are basically artistic. So I'm interested in music and writing and performing and painting. I studied realist oil painting in Spain for several years and learned how to do that. But at one point in my life, in my 20s, I had an epiphany, and I realized, well, I really want to be among people and do a very social kind of art form. And that's why I decided I'm going to New York. I'm going to be an actor. And I used my cartooning skills and illustration skills to support myself as I did that. So I wasn't a waiter. I was an actor cartoonist, if you will.
Amazing. So, you studied, or Jim, did you study to be an actor or an impressionist, or was this natural for you? So, or did you kind of have a natural aptitude or whatever for it, but on the other side, did you study or hone your craft in any way?
Acting or visual art?
Acting.
Acting. I had a real strong interest in it, and I would do it. I did it in college, and I would do it in high school a little bit, but I didn't really get trained. I was kind of timid about being trained, and with good reason, I think. Looking back, I don't know why. Something must have tipped me off, but a lot of acting training is very invalidative and harsh on a student, and I wasn't the kind of person that kind of barreled into an experience like that, willingly. So I did plays, though, because people found me useful. I could do accents and characters, and so in college they would, have me be the crazy Frenchman, or had a pretty passable English accent, and so I could do Pinter,
Amazing.
So I wasn't until I went to New York that I thought, well, maybe I ought to really get some training. And so I asked my mom about it. I said, do you recommend anybody? And she said, well, there's this one school, and it's a very famous school. And I went, oh, well, I've heard of that. And I went there, and it was just appalling in terms of how they brutalized the students. And I found that was kind of, something I heard about a lot, and it really almost kind of got me thinking about ditching it completely and not being an actor. It was that bad. It was
really?
just a lot of Yeah, just a lot of criticism. And I thought, well, I guess that's how you have to teach it, right? You know, I like a lot of people, I thought, well, that's just how you do it. And I've come to realize that it's actually the wrong way to do it.
Yeah.
Because you don't allow people to make their own discoveries and develop their own sense of judgment, and really they don't allow them to do what they wanted to do, which was to what are the skills, what are the techniques of actually being an actor.
Yeah.
And those I've really been learning quite recently.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. So. More about that later, but I also studied improv, though. I did study improv after that experience at the famous acting school that I left. I went and studied improv, and that I liked a lot because there's really no time or purpose in criticizing anyone's improvised scene because they've done it and they're never going to do it again.
No.
So it's impractical to even approach that way. And they also recognize when they teach improv that it is creativity and the unusual, distinct viewpoint of the creator that is of value. Yeah. So they don't necessarily squash it. And so I found I flourished in that environment.
Amazing. So can you share with us a little bit more about your first experience as a visual artist doing cartoons and commercials in New York City?
Oh, well, yeah. I basically... I had a little portfolio of arts that I had cobbled together when I arrived in New York, and I luckily fell in with some cartoonists who were living way down in the tip of Manhattan, near the old World Trade Center, the shadow of the World Trade Center.
Wow.
And they introduced me to people, and I would just schlep my portfolio around and gradually build samples, and I would even mail them out. I'd send people endless cartoons and illustrations to editors and people in magazines. A very different world back then, and how printing was, how images were, and how things were conveyed. There was no digital anything. It was all very hand done. And I had a setup at my little apartment, and I would draw cartoons late at night and do illustrations. And at the same time, I was trying to build my acting career, so I was really hustling. So sending headshots out and doing auditions and looking for an agent and making voiceover demos, because I knew that voice was going to be, for me, maybe the tip of the spear, because I did a lot of confidence in that area. I did impressions, and I did, as I said, accents and things like that. And so I thought, well, I've got a little bit of an edge here above all the other people who are in their 20s in New York looking for acting work. And indeed, the first work I did get in acting was voiceover stuff, doing impressions and things. And then I started to book commercials, which then gave me some stability because you get royalties and residuals, and then I didn't have to scramble around quite so hard to make sure that I was paying the bills.
Yes.
And I built a very healthy commercial career. Yeah, that's the struggle of the freelancer. You're like trying to get something that has a little bit of a royalty basis to it.
Yes, for sure.
So I had some highlights. I went to one. I remember vividly a day that I took the train across to I think it was Queens, and brought my portfolio to a company, and this company was looking for someone who would paint large pictures of cats' heads, cute cats for shirts or something. And I was like, yeah, I guess I could do this. I mean, I know how to do it. I think I could do it. And we left like, oh yeah, well maybe we'll send you something. I was like, yeah, well maybe. Anyway, and then I went, and within the next, I think that afternoon, I went to some audition. And I'd been studying a lot of improv, and I'd also been studying a lot about communication in general. And I went to this interview audition where they said, okay, well, we're looking for a guy that'll come into a store and interview people in a store about, the groceries they buy, and, just kind of make it kind of fun and just talk to people. And And so, I launched into this audition, talking to whoever they had there for me to talk to, and I got the job. It was for a grocery chain down in Texas, and 4 states in the Southwest, and they hired me. I did a bunch of commercials for them. Then they said, we want you to do all our commercials, radio and TV for a year, and it was a contract, and suddenly everything really changed. That changed everything.
Amazing.
And I did that kind of work for about almost 13 years on and off for different companies. And that gave me tremendous stability. It paid very well. It was at a time in the States when the cable hadn't quite exploded yet, so the rates on commercials and royalties were quite high compared to what they are today.
Yes.
So we did very well, and it was easy. I would go down. There were no scripts. I would fly down to Texas for 3 days, do 50 commercials, fly home.
Wow.
All seems like a dream now, but
yeah.
And they were cute. They were fun. It was my own material. I really got tremendous confidence from it.
Amazing. So we touched on the Thundercats obviously earlier in the interview, but I just wanted to come back to that. So how did that actually come about? Like doing how did that job come about?
Oh, well, I was very new in New York, and I was meeting people, and, like you're a young person in a big city, you meet people all the time, you're always reaching out, and some friends, these original artists that I had met, I think they said, hey, there's this friend of ours named Mary Wilshire, and she's kind of an artist, and she's got a friend who's a manager, you should meet this manager. So this manager, whose name I've forgotten, got me an appointment with Rankin Bass, and they were looking for a storyboard artist. And I had worked at Hanna-Barbera as a storyboard assistant, which basically just meant I was coloring in the blue lines with dark black lines on a guy's stuff. I wasn't figuring out. A storyboard is basically how you visually tell a story in a cartoon, and you have to know about angles and storytelling and different kinds of shots. I knew nothing about any of that.
Wow.
I just knew how to draw. And so on the strength of that, I got this appointment, and the Jules Bass of Rankin Bass, the big honcho there, the guy that really was the boots on the ground, he said, so what do you think of these storyboards here that we got? And I remember looking at these storyboards and thinking, and I said, they're a little lean. And he went, okay. It's just the braggadocio of somebody who doesn't know what he's talking about at all.
Yes.
So on the strength of that, though, they hired me, and I became the storyboard man. And,
wow.
And it was kind of agony, because I basically had gotten a job that I was not qualified to do.
Yeah.
And so for a few days I struggled. I think for maybe 4 or 5 days I struggled in the office there to try to actually do that job. Yeah. And finally, to my great relief, and I don't know why they did this, but they went, we're going to take you off storyboards. How would you like to design characters? I went, oh, thank God, because that was what I was actually qualified to do.
Yes.
And I did that for about a year. So it was a great experience, and it threw me right into animation voices, because I saw how the shows were recorded, and I realized this is even more what I'm suited for. Is doing cartoon voices. So I auditioned for them, and on a series that they were launching right when I was getting ready to, I had left. I was working for them as a freelancer. I was no longer a salaried guy. And they hired me to do voices on one of their big shows. So that helped a lot too. I was very fortunate.
Amazing. So when did you come to realize you had a talent for voice work? Like when in your career, your process of figuring out things, did you realize that you had a talent for voice?
Yeah, well, pretty early on in New York. Again, I'd come from Spain, where I'd been painting and studying painting and being very isolated, and I came to New York, to the big city, and I'd lived in Madrid for a couple months, but I really just kind of got my bearings there and moved to New York. And I guess early on, I don't know, I just had a little bit of a confidence, sort of a secret confidence in my ability because of my relationships with people and how I could make them laugh and voices I knew I could do and things I just sort of always been practicing most of my life. My mother used to do, and does, accents and voices and characters. So it was kind of a thing that we did in our family a lot to make each other laugh or to entertain one another. And so I knew that I had just I put in time in that category of performing. And I thought, well, I think I could do this pretty good. And then I like to record myself, too, when I could and create things that way, which obviously I still do a lot now today.
Yeah.
With my
so what
YouTube
are some of your
channel.
favorite voices that you've done?
Well, I do that. I don't know if you're aware, there was not too long ago, there was a president named George W. Bush. So I have a tendency to revert. I like that. I also like, I've done the voice of Robin Williams' Blue Genie for the Disney company, little company out here in Burbank.
Wow.
So I've done that quite a bit. And I tell you what, I do like, I don't know if you're familiar with Tommy Lee Jones, the American actor Tommy Lee Jones. I like to do his voice quite a bit.
Yeah.
He's got a marvelous sword delivery.
Yeah.
I don't know too many people that imitate Tommy Lee Jones, but there's not much money in it or anything. It's just fun to do.
Yeah.
And there's another Robert De Niro who is, thanks to Martin Scorsese, he's now 30 years old. So that's nice.
Amazing. I love it. So
yeah.
It seems these days the really talented actors that create longevity in the industry are those who have really mastered their craft. But there seems to be this really big gap between the real talent and those just wanting to be famous for being famous. How do you think the industry has changed, not only with the influence of social media, and has this been something you have learned to adapt to, and how has this personally affected you?
Good question. Boy, that's a deep question. You could do an hour on that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a really good question. It's funny. We're in a really interesting period now where a lot of the established, dependable, bankable stars and celebrities who we really, and in anything from rock and roll to movies, right, are still out there working, selling movies, in other words, appearing in movies that do well, and filling concert halls and arenas, but they're getting old.
Yeah.
I mean, Mick Jagger's in his 70s, Paul McCartney's in his late 70s, Tommy Lee Jones, Morgan Freeman, Schwarzenegger, they're old men. And, you wonder, well, where are the next guys coming? And sure, there are some guys in their 40s and 50s, and then there's this, like you said, there's this whole crop of people that are just famous, and we're not sure why they're famous exactly. No. What do they actually know how to do? Now that they're notable exceptions. Yeah, obviously, they're the poster children for that, but they obviously have a tremendous skill in marketing. I mean, Ryan Gosling is tremendously talented, too. Yeah. And Justin Timberlake is extremely talented, but, it's
DiCaprio
like
as well.
Oh, yeah, he's incredible. Incredible. So, but, we're more familiar with the established names, and they're an older crowd.
Yeah.
But they are passing on. They're passing away. They're it's just the cycle of it. Yeah. And then there are kind of in the middle, which is where I am, somewhere in the middle, there are people that are working actors and artists that are just doing it and don't have the benefit of having been like a star in 1987 that everybody kind of remembers and goes, oh yeah, I love that thing that guy did on that series,
Yes.
I was never on I didn't star in a series in the 80s, so I'm kind of the guy who's like, yeah, I think I've seen you. What were you in? And and a lot of my work is invisible because I'm doing it just vocally too. And that's fine. There are advantages to that, but there's tons and tons of us, and in your country too, where you have so many great actors that are just working actors. They're not fancy. They're just doing it, and maybe by some, because it really is by some necromancy, I think, that people escalate and become these household words. It isn't always like, oh, well, definitely, you know, I can see why he got famous. You know, we're not always sure. It just sort of, you go, well, I mean, how many, like, you know, if you go see a stage production, you go, well, there are a lot of good actors.
Yeah.
In this play and in this culture.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, and then there are the people you think, oh, this is fly by night. This person's just a face. She's just a YouTube or an Instagram sensation. And then you get surprised. They turn out to be really talented. You go, oh, well, maybe there was some reason there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what have some of your biggest lessons and learnings been throughout your career, and can you give us some examples?
Some of the biggest what? Sorry, I didn't catch the word.
Lessons and learnings.
Oh,
in
lessons,
your career.
yeah. Well, gosh, I mean, I'm learning a lot lately. It's funny. My wife has an acting school in Los Angeles.
Yes.
And I know I had a kind of a, you know, bad things to say about acting schools, but her acting school is one that I think is really terrific. It's called the Acting Center. And the way they teach acting is they break it down to, well, here are all the things an actor should know. And they've assembled a set of drills, and they completely exclude from the process anybody criticizing or tearing you down or even expressing an opinion about what you did.
Yes.
So that the student can drill, gain confidence, and explore different ways of creating believable, compelling characters,
yes.
and not have to be torn down to some, you know, I don't know, crippled mass
yes.
by a guru, you know.
Yes.
And so I've been learning a lot from that. I'm in acting class, you know, every week, just about, and I'm learning more about what is my job as an actor, and it's fascinating. Because we get a little confused out here, and maybe in London it's true too, where you think, well, you know, I'm a professional, and when I get an audition, I kind of know what they want, and I'm trying to fill that niche of what they are expecting.
Yes.
And that isn't actually, although it seems like that's a practical part of the job, it's not a winning way, because what you want to do, I think, is create something wonderful that only you could create, and bring that in and have them go, wow, what a choice. And they may go, well, we can't buy that choice, but wow, what a choice. And maybe on the next thing we'll remember you, you know what I mean? There's the whole process. But when you think of the great actors that you really admire and that you cannot wait to see what they're going to do, they're all people that took this character, figured out some aspect of it that appealed to them, that they thought was great, and then they bring it to you like a Gary Oldman, and you go, oh my God, only you would have done that.
Yes, absolutely. So what would you say, oh, sorry, carry on.
Well, the only other thing I've learned, I've learned a lot, but hopefully, but I've learned also that the guys at the top, the really successful people, the really productive people, they're usually pretty nice people. They're very social people. They're not these terrorist directors and actors. They're
prima donnas.
Generally, or prima donnas. They're usually pretty nice. I've worked with Ron Howard 5 times. Very nice guy.
Amazing.
I've worked with a lot of Oscar winners, and they're generally just pretty down-to-earth, decent people.
Amazing. So that actually leads me to the next question is, what have some of your biggest career highlights been, and can you share with us more about that?
Sure. Yeah, I always talk about Apollo 13. I got hired to be one of the mission controllers in Apollo 13. I worked on that shoot for a month and learned all about the space program from the guys who were there, and it was a wonderful time. Plus, I think it's an enduring classic film that is always produces an emotional impact and is fascinating. I've had a lot of YouTube success that's really changed my life. I had my first viral video was Shakespeare and Celebrity Voices, and that launched me quite big here in this country as an impressionist.
Wow.
And, Karen, I actually have a viral video that's trending right this minute. I haven't had one like this in years. It's called a deeper look into the life of an impressionist, and it's utilizing that deep fake technology where you can take celebrity faces and put them on your face. And one of your countrymen.
Well, send me the link and I'll share it as well. Definitely.
I will. Yeah.
Perfect.
So sometimes when that happens and when something gets suddenly like a lot of attention, people start, calling you up and wanting you to do things. I do my live show, and suddenly a bunch of people start showing up, and it's just rewarding.
Yeah, and it's nice to see that, especially all the years that you put in and the diversity in which, like you're not just in one specific area, and you've got quite a diverse kind of range that you can work from, which is amazing.
Yeah, I do audiobooks as well. I do just about anything you can do in front of a microphone. I've done, amazing. And I always believe in being very proactive about it, and that's why I use YouTube a lot. I put up things every day on YouTube, literally every day, and sometimes twice a day, because it's a way to reach an audience, and it's a way to be creative. It makes me feel better. It gives me kind of a platform to express whatever kind of creative ideas I have, and it's free,
Absolutely. Well, also, with the power of voice and the way things are going in the digital space, obviously they say voice is the next big thing in terms of, technology. So you're definitely in a good space, for sure.
Yeah, just this morning I worked for Disney for an Alexa thing that they've got some Alexa entertainment that they're working on, and I've done a couple of those. And it's kind of nice because it actually is returning, as far as the artist is concerned and the voice actor, this is old radio.
Yeah.
It's just on a different delivery system.
Absolutely. So you've won many awards in your career. Do you feel that this has helped you open the door to other career opportunities?
Well, I hope so. I think, any way you can get some attention. I did win some awards recently for a short film that I wrote and directed called Sun to Sun. Did I say I directed it? I didn't direct it. I lied just then. I wrote it and I starred in it. I did not direct it. I had a very capable director named Karen Lexton who directed it. And we won a ton of awards. It was really, really nice in festivals. It's about the opioid crisis. It's also on my YouTube channel. I'll send you a link to that. And it was nice to do a film that was serious and about something and was helpful to people and rewarding that way.
Amazing. So you spoke about your mom earlier in the interview. So obviously she is a famous actress. How did your mother influence you, and did she help you, or do you think that having your mom in the industry helped you, or did it come with its own set of challenges?
Yeah, it's always a challenge. Family's always a challenge, but no, she helped me enormously she was a working actress and also a single mother. So she was raising me and my sister on an actress's salary. She didn't do anything else. She didn't have another job to fall back on. She had been acting herself since she was in her 20s as a contract player and in various movies and TV shows. So basically what I learned from her is the work ethic. What is the life of an actor? How do you prepare? How do you stay busy? How do you promote yourself?
Yes.
I learned that you should, she taught me how to be proactive and
you have to, especially as an actor.
Yeah, I met a lot of people that weren't really geared that way, and they were like waiting, or they'd go to the gym a lot. And I was like, God, I just don't think that's not enough for me.
No.
And I could see, like my mom, when she wasn't working on Happy Days even, in the hiatus periods in between seasons, she would always go and do a play. And that's a lot of hard work. It doesn't pay very well, but it's not only a promotional thing, but a way to continue to hone your craft and learn about how to do it, what audience is like. There's a lot you get out of it. So I was so grateful. I think I really was lucked out with with Mom, whom a lot of people consider their mom in a way, at least in the States, because she encouraged me always artistically. So if I wanted to draw something, she'd let me stay up late and finish it. She didn't shut me down. She would always compliment what I did. If I wrote a poem, she'd make a big fuss over it. And I've met then, since then, many people who had parents that just didn't quite grasp what that artistic kid was doing and couldn't really acknowledge it properly or even kind of shut them down, and I feel like I got really lucky.
Amazing. So you've had such a diverse career and been able to develop a number of skills, which is amazing. Do you believe that this has given you an advantage over others?
Well, I don't know. I guess it's not what I was trying to do particularly, but I'm very diverse. It's true, and I think that can be a strength and a weakness in a way because if I'm trying to, if you're just a mountain climber and you've got the mountain in front of you, you bloody well get to the top of that mountain.
Yes.
But if you're a mountain climber and you're a kayaker and you're also a bluegrass fiddler and you also can tune up a car, then you might go, God, that mountain looks pretty steep today. I think I'll go up a little ways and I'm going to come down and play guitar. So I think I tend to float around a little, unfocused too much a little bit, but the truth is there's a lot of things I love to do, and for better or for worse, I do get my name out there, and I do create an effect on people that is generally positive in one way or another. So, and I make a living, so I can't complain. Yeah.
So, fame is not the same as it used to be. What do you believe has changed, and what do you think separates you from others in order to maintain such a long career?
Oh, okay. Those are really two different topics. Fame. Yeah, fame. These days fame can be kind of toxic, right? Because people haven't changed, right? People continue to do what people have always done for millennia, but now we're all exposed. So if somebody wants to know where I went to high school, and even who I know, if they want to know my friends, they can find out very easily. Or what I said when, or what I wrote, or so we're all kind of exposed that way, and it's sort of gotten more and more impossible to hide.
Yeah.
And with that has come obviously the backlash of people who are offended by something that somebody did or said when they were a teenager, and they're now 50. It's just a little ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But we don't know as a people yet, as a population yet, exactly how to deal with that, because the people that are offended are quite vociferous sometimes.
Yeah.
And then there are times when you go, oh, well, gee, I didn't know he was a Nazi. That actually makes a difference. So that kind of muddies the field, if that kind of thing comes up, or wow, that really is egregious behavior, and that's unforgivable, or that needs to be addressed, or whatever. So, the conversation is in a real state of flux right now. But it's interesting because at least the conversation is on a global level, and it is a conversation. When it starts to be a shutdown of communication, where it's like, well, let us banish this person, or let us never say this word, or this kind of stuff, I start to go, that's not going to hold.
No. And I think that's
and so we're going through a difference.
Yeah, and we've become, I think, as society, way too soft. And now people are, like you say, too scared to say things because, you'd be labeled as a racist or, anti a certain sexual gender or whatever it is. And it's like people just, need to get on with it. I mean, you're not going to please everyone.
There are big problems in the world, and it's not name calling is not our big problem.
No.
We're floating around on a planet in the middle of a universe. We have all kinds of challenges, on every level of life, from family to group to the environment to the animal kingdom to the universe at large. There's no end of problems.
No.
So let's concentrate on the ones that really yield, I think, the most benefit and aren't just the topic du jour or the political thing that we all agree on, you know.
Exactly. So that leads
easy to say, but there you go.
Exactly. So what would your advice be to others who are wanting to pursue a career in the creative space, and what do you believe they need to do?
I'm very happy to answer that question. That's a great question. So I talk to a lot of artists and actors and people starting off at every age, and I say the first barrier you have to get over is your own willingness to get started and to do things. So there's a lot of people walking around going, God, I have this idea for a story, or, you know, I always wanted to paint a picture of blah, blah, or, you know, boy, if I could be in a film. And that's all wondering and thinking and conjecture. These days, there really are very few actual physical barriers to doing any of those things.
Yeah, 100%.
And if there ever were,
people's limitations.
You know? Yeah, so you have to kind of decide for yourself, all right, I'm going to give this a shot. Yeah. And then you begin to notice that, oh, wow, you know, I get started and then I start to just second-guess myself, or I start to criticize myself, and you begin to notice, wow, I started and then I went and made a cup of coffee and I didn't pick it up again. Yeah. So that's the beginning of the education, right? Then you start to notice, well, I pushed through, I actually finished the thing, I did it. Then I noticed that several of my friends said, what are you doing that for? That doesn't look good. And, oh, now I'm getting it from outside. So you begin to notice these layers of stop. Mm-hmm. and any artist is going to encounter those, and any artist has to learn how to deal with those things. Absolutely. And you deal with it by just continuing and pressing forward and being very stubborn about it. And if you're not, you will be quiet and you will never do those things that you secretly hanker to do.
Absolutely. So that leads me to the next question. Do you have any up-and-coming exciting projects you're working on that you can speak about?
Well, again, I want to say I got a lot of interesting stuff on my YouTube channel right now, because I'm collaborating with one of your countrymen, a guy named, I don't know how you pronounce this, Shamook, and he's from Manchester, and he's a deep fake expert, IT guy. And this latest viral video, which is at 203,000 views over 5 days, is making use of that technology, and we're doing other things together. I've been doing little George W. Bush. I'm doing a series about George W. Bush and how to say big words.
Amazing.
So he's been, so my YouTube channel is very thriving right now, and a lot of stuff. And what else? I've written a screenplay, and I'm working on getting that made. It's about an impressionist in Vegas, and that's moving forward. There's every day changes of possibilities and things, but that's right now, right in this house right now, there's got a lot of attention on the old YouTube.
Oh, brilliant. Amazing. So this leads me to the final question of what are your 3 key pieces of advice you would give to other entrepreneurs, and what legacy do you want to leave?
Oh, great question. 3 pieces of advice for other entrepreneurs.
Yeah, because actors are entrepreneurs, so
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for entrepreneurs and people to get things done, and so I guess, like as I said, tried to articulate, push through criticism, and notice when people around you are being critical, because it's generally non-productive. Be industrious. And, it has to be said, we have a very druggy world right now, and I'm a great proponent of being drug-free. I don't take any drugs or even painkillers unless I'm really screwed up, really like damaged, or going under the knife or something, or getting a tooth pulled. I don't take aspirin, and I stopped doing every kind of recreational drug years and years and years ago. But these days, like in the United States, now we have legalized marijuana and a lot of psychiatric drugs, and people are handling all their problems with drugs. I would say if you really want to have a long and healthy career, don't even start with that stuff. No. Because you can gain, as you, a lot of your audience probably recognizes, you gain a lot of joy, a lot of confidence, a lot of self-respect, and just ease from trusting yourself and getting busy and getting productive and realizing your artistic vision. So, as Mr. T said, stay off the drugs, stay in school.
Absolutely.
I don't think that's 3, but
yes. And what legacy would you like to leave?
Oh, well, and we all hope to leave a better world in some way, and I just want to contribute to things that are going to really leave a better world, a more hopeful world, an inspiring world. So, and there are a lot of ways to do that. We've got yeah. I mean, I would like to create more beauty.
Yes.
As a painter, it's not really a way to make a great living these days, so I don't indulge in it as much as I'd like to. But the legacy I leave is my beautiful daughter, who's also an artist and a voice actress, and God, I don't know. There's no specific thing, I guess, Karen. I just, you just want to not screw it up.
Than the way you found it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like my mom has done that. I mean, she really has created a great effect with people. By the way, she's got a book. It's called My Days, Happy and Otherwise. I'll send you a link to that.
Yeah,
her autobiography, which is lovely. Sure. Yeah, it's a lovely book and tells her story and what she's done.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we can have you back in the future. So thank you so much.
Yeah. You're welcome. Thanks for those great questions. I appreciate it, Karen.